Is headlining actually the best slot to have on a concert bill? Today, we're actually going to unpack together why headlining isn't actually the most beneficial slot for you if you're an up-and-coming musician. Welcome back to another episode, guys. Today, like I said, we're going to be talking about what position would be best for you as an up-and-coming musician to participate within a particular concert bill to get the best bang for all the work that you're putting into playing that show and getting that show. Now, when I was first looking for live gigs, I was actually listening to a podcast that was on SoundCloud that I don't think is going any longer. It was this podcast that I discovered because of this band that I really loved called Valley Heart. They're from Beverly, Massachusetts. And they did their first tour back in 2016, I believe. And they went up and down the East Coast for their first tour, which is a pretty awesome accomplishment. Now, during that tour, they actually get to sit down with this podcast called Night Drives Podcast that's based in Lynchburg, Virginia, and just kind of talk about what life on the road is like and what their dreams and aspirations are, what they've been doing lately as far as they just released a new EP. So it was good press for them. Eventually, one of the interviews led to just kind of insight into the booking and promotion side of the music business. The guy, I believe his name was Blake, that was running the podcast was actually a local promoter based there in Lynchburg, Virginia. And in the midst of one of these interviews, he's talking with other music professionals within his local market, other bookers and artist managers, promotional teams, all those sort of people within that market. And he said something that really stuck out to me. He talked about how, from a booker's perspective, when he has artists or bands reaching out to him and they're trying to get out of their local scene, they're trying to step more into a regional market or maybe even a national market by starting to build fans in other cities, maybe neighboring states, or maybe even neighboring regions. He talked about how he likes artists to approach that as far as kind of making sure they've done their homework and done their legwork. And the main application of that portion of the podcast was he was speaking against artists and bands who try to get together for a tour package, which is a couple bands or artists sharing a van and kind of sharing the financial responsibility of the tour, that they can save money and they can go on tour with some of their best friends. And he talked about how that is not the best way to do things, because if he's got a band reaching out to him with a tour package that's 2 or maybe even 3 or 4 bands that's saying, hey, we've got no local draw, no regional draw, because we're stepping into a brand new music market by you booking us. He's saying it's really hard for me to try to find a place to fit that whole package into a show, because he's like, listen, I need to book local openers for that package that they can get draw, because that package isn't going to bring in any people through the door. They have 0 draw in that area. And he's like, I also need to book some big headliners that I can once again get people through the door. So he was saying, listen, if you travel light, meaning if you the best case scenario would be if you're just a solo tour, meaning it's just one band or one artist. He's like, I can find a place to put you. And here's what really stuck out, and this is the main point. He said, I can put you in the middle of the show. And he's like, that's really where you want to be. Because he said, listen, if you're in the middle of the show, you get the best of both worlds. He's like, I can book a local opener that's able to draw, say, 20, 30, maybe even 50 or 60 people through the door. Those people are going to get there early for that opener. And then he's like, then on top of that, I'm going to book a good headliner that most likely the fans from that opener are going to want to stay for. And then that headliner is going to bring in fans that'll show up shortly before their set starts, and they're going to end up catching your set as well. So we talked about how being in the middle of the bill is actually one of the best places to be if you are an up-and-coming act, or if you're stepping into a market, whether it's regional or local, that you don't have much draw in. Because by being in the middle of the set, you're able to draw from both the opener's fans as well as the headliner's fans, which is exactly what you want, because you want the most amount of exposure, especially if you're paying for gas and hotel rooms and food when you're out on the road. Say you're booking a small tour, that's what you want. But even if you're doing weekend runs, or even if you're doing one-offs where you're just going to a concert, playing a gig and coming back home and you're driving 4 hours, you want to make sure it's worth it to where you're actually going to be able to play for people. If you're getting booked as the opener, it's not going to be as good for you because nobody's going to come to see you. Maybe a couple people who are the real music fans within that area are going to come out to see you because they just love that venue and they love discovering new bands. But the people who are coming for the regional act that has draw there, who's playing after you, they're not going to come except for maybe the last 5 minutes of your set. The flip side of that is also if you're booked as the headliner, which is a temptation for you and I because we think, oh man, I'm headlining, this is awesome, this is really great for me. That looks good on my social profiles, it looks good for me when I'm booking for other shows. I can say, yeah, I headlined at this venue right down the street from you, you should have me headline there. Here's the problem. If you headline and you haven't done the legwork of actually building up a following in that area, here's what's gonna happen. They're gonna book a local opener, and then they might book another local guy to play in the middle, or maybe a regional guy to play in the middle. And then what's gonna happen is all the people are gonna come out for the first band and the second band or artist, and then they're gonna leave before you even get on stage because they've gotten what they've come out for because they've never heard of you. And this is why if you're an up and coming artist and you're just getting started, whether it be within your own market or it be within a new market that you're trying to branch out to, don't aim for and don't accept offers to be the headliner. One of the main examples I can think of for this in my own experience is actually one that I had an opportunity for that ended up not coming into fruition because of the Corona stuff, but also because I actually had a worship gig that weekend that conflicted with it, and I was not about to try to juggle 2 gigs at the same time. There's this local music festival that's hosted at a high school about 2 hours away from where I live in Southwest Michigan. Bands that I've played with, namely the American Hotel System here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, they've played there. And when I discovered this festival, I was going, oh man, this is great. I can connect with some high schoolers, some people that'll eventually be going to college soon, to where that can help me to kind of get some fans in the inside of colleges and universities within Michigan, as well as probably within the Midwest in general. Side note, that's a really good idea. And so I reached out to this festival and they said, yeah, we'll actually book you for the 10:30 slot. Now on paper, that looks really good. You're going, wow, usually the biggest guy plays the last slot. And yet here's the deal, is that it depends on the context what the best slot is, because I had 0 draw in that area and it was my first time playing at that festival, to where I'm not gonna get anybody through the door. And I think the festival probably knew that. If anything, they probably structure it that way. The newbies get the late sets. So if I'd actually gone through with that gig, probably what would have happened is I would have seen some great bands that I'm friends with play, and then I would have gotten up afterwards and I would have probably ended up playing to a handful of high school students that really are dedicated to the music scene and the bands themselves. So this wouldn't have helped me to really grow my fan base and actually start gaining some momentum within that area. I would have just played it, and the best benefit I could probably get out of it is trying to impress the other bands that I'm playing afterwards, to where they might enjoy my music and want to book me opening for one of their gigs. But the point is that it would have been better to be sandwiched between 2 people that have pretty good draw for that festival. So I hope this video is helpful for you with just appreciating the slot of trying to be the middleman. I'd also add on to that, even though opening isn't the best scenario necessarily, it can still be a really good one. In addition, if this video has been helpful for you, please hit the subscribe button. I'm going to have weekly content dealing with all things music career, especially from the place that we're all starting off at, which is just the beginning. I'm trying to build a following, build up our social media presence, all these different things. So I'm going to be covering things like booking, things like recording, all the things that have to do with building your music career from the ground up. Until next time, guys, I hope you guys continue to grow well.